Chapter 23. Now Balaam, he has arrived unto the king, and the king is going to take him up on one of these high places where they would worship Baal, one of these false gods. And the fear of the Lord has been effectively implanted in that of Balaam by this point, which was one of the, I'm guessing, one of the key motives behind the angel of the Lord stopping him on his journey. And that brings up the question, well, would Balaam cursing Israel have done anything? Would God have been forced to move on his by his cursing or blessing? No, it's not believed about that. It's believed that the morale of the Moabites would have then had been lifted up, and then they would have went to war against Israel. This would have affected other people, wouldn't have affected God at all, but it would have definitely affected other people. And the Lord, he strictly prohibits Israel from attacking the Moabites because they're long off cousins, just like the Ammonites are from Lot, Abraham's nephew. So once again, Balak, he brings him up to one of these high places, and they can see the 2.5 million Israelites in the far distance. And Balaam said unto the king, Build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had spoken. And Balak and Balaam offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. Now these were new altars, because the old ones were used to sacrifice unto these false gods. And there's really an awful lot going on right here. And Balaam said unto Balak, Stand by thy burnt offering, and I will go. Peradventure the Lord will come to meet me, and whatsoever he showeth me I will tell thee. And he went to a high place, and God met Balaam. And he said unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth, and said, Return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak. And he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by his burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab. This is actually a big ceremony. Don't picture in your mind just a couple of men on top of this mountain and stay. The book of Numbers dedicates 3 chapters to this blessing. This is an obviously very important set of events that is occurring right here with this Gentile prophet Balaam, this Gentile king, and this huge blessings, that culminates into the prophesying of the latter days domination of the Messiah over the world. This is a huge thing happening, and it's often overlooked. And Balaam took up a parable. This is the first blessing, and said, Balak the king of Moab hath brought me from Aram, out of the mountains of the east, saying, Come, curse me Jacob, and come, defy Israel. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, and the number of the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. And King Balak looks at Balaam. You can just picture this in your mind. And Balak, he looks at Balaam and says, What hast thou done unto me? I took thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them altogether. And he answered and said, Must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? And the king said unto him, Come, I pray thee, with me unto another place, from whence thou mayest see them. Thou shalt see but the utmost part of them, and shalt not see them all, and curse me them from thence. Okay, let's try this again then, Balaam. If he told you to do that at that place, let's come to this other high place where they've been worshiping and praising their false gods forever. And he brought him unto the field of Zophim, to the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. And he said unto Balak, Stand here by thy burnt offering while I meet the Lord yonder. The same routine as last time. And I do believe, my friends, that this is a type of purifying of the land. right here, the land of Moab, because now not only are God's people coming in, they're going to be neighbors to them. So this is cleansing these huge idolatrous places and also announcing these blessings and even prophecies unto these Moabites, telling them these people are going to rule the whole world and you all want to destroy them. And the Lord met Balaam and put a word in his mouth and said, Go again unto Balak and say thus. And when he came to him, behold, he stood by his burnt offering, and the princes of Moab with him. And Balak said unto him, What hath the Lord spoken? Notice how the Moabite king even knows the name of the Lord. All nations had heard about the Lord since the days of Adam. He lived 900 plus years, and he was able to preach during those times, so everyone knew about that. And then Enoch, he prophesied. And then you get to Noah, and then Noah, he preached long enough to, pretty much see Abraham if he so could have. The Lord's name is actually the most ancient on the earth, above everyone. Everyone knows about the Lord. Everyone's always heard about him. The problem with a lot of them is that these people, Satan, he would corrupt these nations, and he would introduce these idols and these superstitions, these fairy tales, and these all get mixed up, and sooner or later the holy God, the true, the only God, the living God, is mixed in with all of these others in the people's minds, and they sooner or later just forget about him. And now these people are set apart for his name, and this is the people in whom he's blessing. And Balaam took up his second parable, and this was the second blessing, and said, Rise up, Balak, and hear. Hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? I really love this. People, they get this distorted, but this is really a very strong statement. A lot of people that come against the Trinity, they say, look, it says Balaam, whenever he was giving the blessing, he says, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Therefore, they're distorting the whole verse. The emphasis is not on the literal sense of that. What Balaam is saying, and it's actually clarified in the following verses, is that you're not going to sway God. In other words, he's not going to change his mind, no matter how often that Balak wants Balaam to come up to these high places. Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen perverseness in Israel. The Lord his God is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. That's actually a very strong statement. The shout of a king is among them. That's a proclamation of victory. Like people shouting for a mighty prince who's just returned from the battlefield, like a King David or one of these. God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, What hath God wrought? Now that's another strong statement. As a matter of fact, see, the Spirit of the Lord is moving this man to say these wonderful things. But what hath God wrought? That's a statement of amazement. Look at what the Lord has done with these people. They were slaves. Now they're going to be mighty. Behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion, and lift up himself as a young lion. He shall not lie down until he eat of the prey, and drink the blood of the slain. And Balak said unto Balaam, Neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all. He says, just stop talking. He says, you're going way against everything that I've already told you. Not only are you not helping, you're hindering us even more. Now the men's morale are just totally shot. Now no one is wanting to go to war with them, which is one of the great ways of the Lord. Much like Haman and Mordecai, Haman had built these really tall gallows and planned on hanging Mordecai from. Well, turns out Haman gets hanged and Mordecai gets exalted. And the Lord does this constantly. He's done this in my own life. And several times, as a matter of fact. He'll turn the tables on the enemy, and this is like a double-edged sword. It cuts in every direction. But anyways, Balak says, Curse them not, nor bless them. And Balaam, he answers, he replies and says unto the king, Told not I thee, saying, All that the Lord speaketh, that must I do. And Balak said unto Balaam, Come, I pray thee, I will bring thee into another place. Peradventure it will please God that thou mayest curse me them from thence. Notice how he already calls him the Lord, now he's calling him God, which brings us to these final verses. And Balak brought Balaam unto the top of Peor, that looketh toward Jeshimon. Now this is their greatest high place. This is the most famous one in that entire vicinity. Matter of fact, this is where they would worship Baal Peor, which we'll come to in later studies, that looketh toward Jeshimon. And Balaam said unto Balak, Build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 bullocks and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had said, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. Now, if you're asking yourself what's the significance behind these burnt offerings, well, the burnt offerings was a way that someone would bring at random times. The Israelites would do this just at random times, and also during the festivals and everything, the feast. But they would bring these, and whenever they would burn, it's as if, because they burn the entire offering, and then the smoke would rise up, it's actually the most ancient form of sacrifices. But it's firmly believed that it was derived from that of Noah at the very least. But anyway, the smoke goes up, and the smoke is a type of prayers going up to heaven. So this is to get in contact with God. This is a symbolic way of saying, Lord, look, I've given this, so now please hear my prayers.